everyone, and welcome to another Army Builder briefing. I'm Jonathan, and this is my very first one of doing one of these, actually. And in classic fashion, I'm going to do it my way, which is silly randomness, to be completely honest. I will be going over the Ramah Task Force because Hawk is my main faction, and we actually got a request for it in one of our recent videos, so why not go over it? Spoiler alert, I don't usually play Ramah Task Force. I'm usually playing vanilla, because I'm weird like that. But I do like every single Hawk sectorial. And I love Hawk Islam in general, so I will hopefully give you guys some form of insight into how to make lists for Rama. How I'm going to do it, which isn't how it's usually done, because again, I do things my own way and it's often weird. I'm going to show you guys the full list. I'm going to go over alternatives that you could have had and go over why I chose what I did. So without further ado, let's get started with my first list. I went to Austin and he was just like, okay, I'm going to give you 3 missions, you build for them. He gave me 3 missions and they were Firefight, looting and sabotaging, and then he told me to make another specialist that is going to be more fun to just go over when I go over it. So this was supposed to be the Firefight list, but I like to think of this list as more of an all-comers list. Now, with every single list, for the most part, you do tend to follow a certain trend. Core fire teams for defense, Harris's for offense, and midfield specialists, all that good stuff. Now, Rama is in a sort of interesting spot where it doesn't have very cheap midfield specialists. The midfield specialist, I will go over real quick, is the Nahab Aeromobile team. Doesn't have camo like most midfield specialists do, but they're honestly really good pieces. I did not bring them in this list. This list is mostly meant to be kind of a offensive push forward sort of list. So we went with a Ghulam fire team. We have the Ghulam lieutenant with a regular Ghulam to do some shell games in it. The Katawish heavy rocket launcher, because it's a very, very good defensive piece. And with the BS-13, the BS attack +1 damage, the bio immunity, everything about the Katawijs as a whole is really good. They have a lot of amazing profiles, and this is literally just scratching the surface of what Katawij can do, right? I honestly love them a lot. They're just super, super good. Brought the NCO Multispectral Visor Level 2 with the Mark 12, just to make it even harder to guess who the lieutenant is, even though it's kind of obvious. It's between literally 2 dudes. But hey, it's an extra order, right, for the core team to do things. And then the Ghulam Doctor. Now, bringing up Ghulams, the biggest thing with Ghulams, everyone knows, it's their WIP 14. Hawk Islam has some of the highest willpower in the game. It's one of their claims to fame, where they just have amazingly high willpower almost across the board, higher than average, and it just keeps them in the fight. So with WIP 14 on the Ghulam, you're going to be hopefully winning the lieutenant role more often than not, and the doctor with his doctor +3 will be picking up any of your things that go down also rather easily thanks to the 17. One of the special things that Ramah Task Force has access to, actually, is the Fanus remotes with AVA3. You don't really see remotes a lot in Hawk. Remotes aren't really a big thing for them. But you can do some fun things, regardless. Fanus are probably your cheapest order monkeys, so I slotted in 2 just because Rama, as a whole, is kind of expensive. So, you know, reaching for the cheap orders is pretty good. I'm going to go over Carmen in a second, but as I was making the list, I was thinking, what other punch pieces can I put in? And the Shayatani is surprisingly very good in Rama because of one other dude, the Tuareg. So when I was thinking, okay, I want more punch, let's bring the Shayatani and the Tuareg combo. Is it expensive? Sure. It's 50 points and 2 SWC. But having a midfield hidden deployment, camouflage, mim -6, stealth, terrain total dude with whip 15, really good. He's going to spotlight more often than not. I've played a couple of games with Austin. It's just like, oh hi, I am a camo marker popping up in the middle of the field from nowhere. Yay! I really like this combo. It's really fun. And all Tuaregs come with shock mines, so even if the hacker isn't going to be the most useful thing for you, which, let's be honest, a hacker 9 times out of 10 is going to be really useful, he can still put down mines and just start making the midfield really hard to get through. Now, let's go on to Carmen, because when I made the core fire team and I brought them MSV2, naturally I'm going to bring in Carmen. So why Carmen? She's really cheap for only 17 points. She's really fast at 8-4 thanks to the bike. She's really tough, actually, thanks to the dogged. Sure, she's not shock immune and she's only armor 1, but booty, so she can be... Booty just has so much to it that it's amazing. Martial Arts level 2, Natural Born Warrior. I really like Carmen. She brings smoke grenades, which can combo very well with the MSV2 Mark 12. So she was a natural fit. And she's a great midfield sweeper. I love bringing her every single time I do. She's always super fun. And as you'll go on with the list, you'll start figuring out more and more things. Okay, so in my group 1, which I finished first, I had my core fire team. Cool. I had some order monkeys. Cool. I had a couple little redundancies with the Shayatani for hit pieces and Carmen as a solo hit piece because she can be a very good solo hit piece with the heavy pistol, the DA close combat weapon, and Batard. But I had a good amount of orders left over, 114. So we went to group 2. Now what's another really strong thing that Ramah Task Force can bring to bear? The Mukhtar active response units. So Mukhtar are famous for being just scary. So naturally, if I want another really big hit piece, I'm going to pick up that Red Fury. Again, multi-structural visor level 2. Carmen kind of made it feel like, well, I want more MSV so I can take more advantage of her smoke. And the Mukhtar was just a natural fit. Sure, it's just a Red Fury, but it's a Red Fury, guys. It's a Red Fury on a BS13 Mimetism -3 platform. That's move 6-2. Really good. Really, really good. And the forward deployment +4, really good. I really like Mukhtar. To go along with the Mukhtar, I brought Rouhani. Why? Because, well, the doctor for the Mukhtar themselves is 10 points more expensive than Rouhani. They're about as good. Rouhani with his 15 is really good. And just the fact that only 2 faces of the die for Rouhani for doctoring someone fails makes him an outstanding doctor and probably one of the best in the game. He has a flash pulse also to help defend himself if he needs to be. And since he's a wild card, going in with the Harris is actually really good. And then to round out the Harris, I brought another hacker. Now, I know a lot of people were really upset when we got the Mukhtar hacker model instead of the Red Fury, but honestly, I've grown to like her. Rifle, light shotgun, D charges makes her able to do a lot of things. Hacking device helps with even more things. And again, whip 14, so really good chance of doing some hacking shenanigans. And then to round it out, we brought 2 Nafatoons. Now, why Nafatoons? Why not, something cheaper? Well, for one, I was already pretty much at 15. But for 2, Nafatoons actually make outstanding, like really outstanding, deployment zone defenders. Either with either of the profiles, honestly. The grenades are good. The light flamethrower is good. I got the heavy flamethrowers because it had the points and it's just a bigger template. And because of how fire teams work in Rama, they can count as Gulam. So if you start losing a couple of things in your core team, you can later on in the game transfer both Nafatoon into Group 1, or if you're literally just dealing with dredges at that point, you can transfer the remnants of the fire team into Group 2, and we form possibly a core. So very, very useful for that front. Honestly, I really like this list because it brings a lot of the things that I just enjoy. Brings a hackering Tuareg, brings Shayatani, brings Carmen, who's just fun. You will enjoy playing Carmen just for fun, especially if she rolls something amazing with her booty. And then the Mukhtar are just really strong and really oppressive at times. I totally don't run 2 Mukhtar Red Furies in vanilla. Don't at me. But yeah. So this is a really basic kind of like all-comers list. You can do a lot of different things with it. I've had really, really good luck with the Karawij Multispectral Visor Level 2 Mark 12, just because it is a strong hit piece, thanks to the fact that Karawij have the BS attack +1 damage. The bioimmunity makes them effectively armor 3 against pretty much everything and anything. So they're just a really, really, really strong point man, no matter what profile you bring. And again, bring a doctor, because doctors are really good for Hawk. Order monkeys, you get the gist. Really solid all-comers list, try it out. But to kind of bring up some of the things I wanted to was, well, what about other things that you could bring? I'm going to briefly go over the Zayden really quick, because these are a really good option for a defensive core as well. They're more expensive, and they don't have the same versatility as Gulams. But Zayden were really maligned towards the end of the last edition, but now I think they're outstanding. I would bring Zayden cores a lot, but I would have to make a list around them. So I'm not gonna be going over a list, I don't think, that brings a Zayden core this video, but keep an eye out for them, try them out. Heck, bring a Zayden Harris with the heavy machine gun. I implore you, you'll enjoy it. It's something I need to do just because marksmanship on a heavy machine gun seems dirty. Now, the second list I was tasked with making was for looting and sabotaging. So, what do we do here? Well, immediately, our very first thought when it comes to looting and sabotaging is like, okay, what do we have in the faction that can deal with the AC2? Well, the biggest thing that everyone immediately jumps to is D-charges. So, if we go to weapons and go to D-charges, we can see we have a decent amount. We have the Magariba guard, but only the pilot has D-charges. So, okay. Sure, Maggies are what's the word I'm looking for? They're tags, so they can just beat on it with their bare fist. But without a weapon, it's less likely to happen. I will say, the other tag, one second, the Shakush does have an AP close combat weapon, so he would actually be really good of an option as well. But I wanted to go more with D charges because they hit once and odds are they're going to do the job. Najaroons, no. Monstruckers, again, no. Layla, she could do it, but 15 is not very reliable. Mukhtar, 16 is not super reliable, and it's only on one profile, the Forward Observer. And the hacker, but I think we have better options than the Mur and then the Hob. Now this is actually very interesting. So when I remembered that these two had it, I immediately just slotted into infiltration, special sporting shotgun, and the Hobs. They're going to always hit the thing. They will crit fairly decently, and they're already starting halfway up the board. They have stealth, so they're sneaky enough to get around. Sure, they don't have mimetism or camo state, but they're fast. They're immune to criticals. They have no wound incapacitation, and they dodge 4 inches, and they can berserk. So if you can get a line between an Ahab and the AC2 within 8 inches, you just berserk into it, and it doesn't matter how many arrows your opponent has. You're killing it. So yeah, immediately. 2 Ahabs. Just great. Just amazing. Sure, the parachutist is also a good option, but with the infiltration, you just have way more options. So yeah, just immediately. 2 Ahabs. And then I brought in the Mur. Because the Mur also will just hit the thing, period. She's not critting like the Nahabs are, but she lacks for that. She makes up for it with the fact that she is tough as nails. Like the Mur is tough as nails. She basically still has old school total immunity, thanks to the bioimmunity immunity total combo. So sure, she's only treated as armor, quote unquote, 3 against everything, but it's a 3 that never changes. It's great. She's also just super mobile. 6'2" is great, fast move. Climbing plus is great, so unlike within the Hobbs, who lack climbing plus, the Mur can squirrel around to different corners that the Nahabs couldn't, and get at different attack angles that they couldn't thanks to the climbing plus. She dodges on a 15. She only dodges 3 inches, but still, she's dodging on a 15. And NWI and all that good stuff. The Murs are actually really, really good. Sure, I could have brought the Spitfire, but the Spitfire is really expensive. And I wanted to actually make a link team within the Mur, because creating a sort of escort for the Mur, if worse comes to where, I felt was a really good idea. So, what are the ways that an Mur can be in link teams? Well, she counts as Gulam, or one of them can go with Janissaries. So we got to bring my favorite Harris in the game, the Janissary Harris. So, I brought in the Mur. What's the immediate next thing I need to do? I need to make a link team around her. What's the first thing I'm going to grab? Janissary HMG. Janissaries are really tough at the 4-6, so they're not the most tough HI, but they're still tough. And they're BS14, because thank you, CB, you gave Hawk some more BS14 outside of the Asawira. I'm happy about this. And for 41 points, he's really a really decent shooter. Janissaries as a whole are pretty basic. They have the dodge +1 inch, which is good, and the 14s across the board for stats minus CC is really good. So just all in all, they're a great team to build around. So when it's just like, well, I'm bringing in a Mur, then I'm bringing in a Janissary. And I'm bringing a Janissary, I'm bringing Wild Bill. Now, why am I bringing Wild Bill? Because he's literally one of my favorite characters I can bring in Hawk. Even with Carmen existing in Ramah Task Force, I love Wild Bill. He's great. I hunted down that mini before it got the full release. I hunted down that Aristea winning thing model because it's really cool. So why is Wild Bill so good? Well, he's got the aggressive move. He's got BS attack +1 damage, so that rifle's closer to a Spitfire, even though it doesn't have the same range bands. BS attack shock, which is great. He dodges on a 14, which is great. And he's got marksmanship and NWI. So you bring him with the rifle. The rifle will help him basically get into his better range bands. Like the Janissary is there for the longer range bands outside of 16. Wild Bill is there for 16 in. And then the Mur is there to punch things in the face should she need to. Because the EMCCW and CC20 is actually really useful for punching things in the face and making them leave you alone. Wild Bill's not a slouch in CC either, thanks to the multi-pistol with +1 burst. So if him and the Namur are engaged in its active turn, he will throw three dice at something. Sure, it's only on 15s, but that will hurt something, hopefully. But mostly he wants to definitely be like a little bit further back and shooting with the multi-pistols, because if we look at multi-pistols really quick, they have 2 shots base. His are +1 burst, so 3 shots. And then in the Harris, it becomes 4 shots. So he's literally shooting a little AP Spitfire in close range. Yeah, I really like Wild Bill. And as a bonus, with the other mode for the multi-pistol, should somehow the Nahab, both of them, and the Namur go down, he can actually damage the AC2 pretty well with his DA mode on his multi-pistols, just because he's throwing out 2 dice on 14s. So if he hits both, it's 4 dice. Sure, the AC2 needs 7s, but it's something. I'm not telling you to like go out and be like, yeah, I'm going to destroy this thing with Wild Bill. No, I'm not telling you that at all. But I will say that it's good. It's something. And now, core team. Naturally, I made a Ghulam core team. So Ghulam, Lieutenant, Doctor, the Katawij NCO, because really good. And Yara. So why'd I bring Yara at this point? The double MSV 2 is really the reason. So Katawij with the Mark 12. If we look at the range bands really quick, right here, we see that it's Spitfire ranges, which is the same as the AP marksmanship. But their job, this core's job, is just to protect your AC. That's it. So you just want to try to find spots on the board where you're only seeing that outside of 8 within 24 range band for them to shoot. You're not there to keep them from getting to you. You're there to keep them from killing the AC2. The light shotguns on the Ghulams can be very good as well, thanks to their template mode now. The Doctor's there to pick things up should she need to. And just, it's a cheap little core to help fuel everything else and to just try to protect the button. That's their job. Protect the button. Also, this list has technically 3 lieutenant options, so a little bit more of a hat trick. And then we had a couple points left over, so I'm bringing Carmen. And Carmen with 2 Fanus remotes is actually pretty useful. It gives her 4 orders all to herself, because the Fanus are just going to be sitting around minding lanes and trying to be that kind of long-range deterrent. It's just be like, I'm going to stun you before you can reach my AC2. Go away. And Carmen is there to do what she was doing in the first list. Throw smoke, be annoying, shoot and smack things. All for 17 points because she's really, really aggressively priced. So, yeah, this list, its basic thing is to throw Nahabs at the AC2, hoping that your opponent cannot stop them. If they can, you have backups. And if your backups go down, there's backups to that. And even if you're going second, the Nahabs are really good at just hiding around corners, sitting down, out of line of sight, but in places that your opponent needs to go, thanks to the boarding shotgun. I mean, they are only BS-12, but BS12 is never anything that sneezes at. I know I say that, but BS12 is never anything that sneezes at. That means a crit, so if your opponent just gets that crit in, and your shots, if you're opposing, in this hypothetical, which is probably worth it because they're only 1.5, so opposing can be very useful. But let's say you're opposing, you need 18s or 15s, depending on cover. They need possibly similar. No, definitely not similar. Maybe 15s, maybe 13s. Well, more than likely 13s. If they crit, but you roll a 14, that crit is probably the only thing that's going through. You now only take one roll because they're immune to crit. They're immune to shock, so they can't just immediately die. And you're in cover armor 4, so you have a decent chance of living. So they're good. And if you're going second, their frenzy will not proc until the end of the turn, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that. It might be at the end of the order expenditure, in which case that would be bad. Someone will correct me in the comments. Yeah. But even so, they're just really good at being little speed bumps. They're very good at dealing with warbands, thanks to the boarding shotgun, and because most warbands are going to be running at you with a chain rifle. Not many of them have high burst weapons. Some do, and I like them, but I don't play that faction. I should. And even if the warband wants to fight you in close combat, they are just better fighters. So they're huge little speed bumps for decent points, but not enough of a deterrent for their points. I think they're great. And then again, I bring fun things because I like bringing fun things. I love bringing some of the characters that Hawk has access to. Yara's great. Wild Bill's great. Carmen's great. Tariq is great. I wish I could gush about all of the characters in Hawk, but we're literally waiting on one thing. On one thing before I can, make Rama the Rama overview video. And don't ask me about Hassas and Brown. That's CB. But going on to our last list. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to pull it up. This is the last list. I decided to make the meme list, but it has teeth. I'm not going to lie. It has teeth. So, double Maggie list. Double Maggie list. With the way cover works now, Maggies are very, very tanky. Almost always armor 11, if you can help it. They are difficult to bring down. AP is still going to be kind of a bane, but if you're in cover, you're still armor 7 against AP. So against an AP Spitfire, which is a more common sort of offensive AP weapon that I've been seeing nowadays, you're still only needing 8s. 9s against an AP or multi-HMG. Not counting a certain other model that Austin went over probably. But Maggies. If we're going to go all out, we're going to go all out. So we're going to spend over 100 points for both Maggies. Both Maggies end up being 105 and 108 points. So, why? Well, I could have just brought the 81 point Maggie. But that's boring. There's nothing wrong with the 81 point Maggie. She's cheap and she's effective. But the 88 point Maggie is super good with the HRL and the grenade launcher. Sure, it is not an HRL +1 burst. And we all know HRLs just go through the roof when suddenly they have 3 dice. Still really fun. Especially on attack because of the BS attack +1 damage. Maggie's having the 360 visor also makes them very good. Maggie's having everything. Look at this block of just stuff they have. They have baggage, so the Mind Dispenser Maggie can just refill herself, which is the other Maggie we brought, because if you really wanted to just be silly, you could just spend all of these orders just spec firing mines into the midfield over and over and over and over, and then just tell your opponent to come forward. If it works, yay. If it doesn't, boo. But you just wasted turn 1. And if you're going first, wasting turn 1 is probably not the worst thing in the world, because you still have now 2 turns to get at your opponent, and there's a possibility that they're not super dug in. Let's be honest. Especially when you bring the core I'm going to go over. But, yeah. This Maggie, sorry about that. The Mind the Sensor Maggie is just super great. Has a much better close combat, well, not close combat, but close quarters weapon, and the heavy flamethrower +1 burst. Heck, even just the closer range AP heavy pistol is really good. The other Maggie having the heavy pistol +1 burst means if you do get bogged up in melee, she gets to throw 2 dice at whatever warband's attacking her instead of 1. If it's an Oni Waban, let's be honest, you're dead. But still, it's a fighting chance on active turn. And just, Maggies are fun. They're big, dumb, and just really tough. Now, why do we go with Rafiq's? Rafiq's being 20-point Red Furies with flash pulses, repeaters, triangulated fire, all the good stuff, is honestly really good. Ignoring the lower BS because remote, they're just great. They turn off mines. They have a repeater. They're just really good little tag teams to go with the Magaviba guards. So, obviously I brought 2. 1 for each because they're AVA too. Now, I of course want to protect the Maggies, and just to quickly go over, yeah, Gulam Lieutenant, wanted more defensive weapons for this, so brought the sniper and missile launcher, Gulams. Again, it'll only be S11, but in a core team at good ranges, hitting on 14s is still pretty nice. So don't turn your nose up at this will only be S11. Look, I've played TAC. I've played the TAC silly double sniper rifle line Kazakh list. It works. Sorta. But no. Gulams with the basic special weapons for defense. Very good. And if one goes down, brought a Nafatoon to just fill it up. But the big thing with what this core has is brought Layla. Sure, I could have her alone, say down here. Keep them in the link and have Layla just on her own, ready to fill in later by her instead. I put her in the link because she can actually do some good work with the Shock Marksman rifle. She also has the EM mine, so if she starts, say, moving with the core, if the core needs to move, she can lay them in their path. And a breaker pistol is also a really good weapon at close ranges. But the big reason is her killer hacking device. She is here because she has a killer hacking device. She is... Actually, is she? Let me check this really quick, guys. Okay, she is one of the only killer hackers that Hawk has access to. The other ones being the Nahabs. Could have bought them, but they're more expensive. Sure, they can be in the midfield to better protect the Maggies and even hunt down, say, midfields, but I don't know. This is kind of more of a pick your poison kind of thing. Do you want midfield killer hackers that can protect your Maggies in 2 ways instead of just 1? Do you want this core with Layla sitting in the backfield watching your things? Because to be 100% honest, you could totally pare down this core into 2 Nahab killer hackers and some flash bots. Actually, here. So let's say I pared all this down, right? Okay, that's 301 points. That's too many points. That's too many points, guys. But you can still do, say, one. You can grab 2 Fanus. Or heck, you could even just grab 1 Fanus. You could grab Layla. Where's Layla? There she is. And you could grab a Warcore. And that could work. It's not as amazing, but still pretty good. You do have 2 points left over. So if you could pair the Nahab down, you can't really pair the Nahab down enough, but what you could do is you could downgrade the 88-point Maggie to another 85-point Maggie and do it that way. Heck, you could... You know what? Will this work? Kind of. Okay, I don't think this works nearly as well. Basically, you're taking the Ghulams, making them very obvious, writing the 2 Nahabs, a Fanus, and then a Warcore. It's not as many orders as the previous iteration of the list, but it's entirely possible. You could totally do that. I wouldn't. If I were to do anything with a Nahab, it would probably end up looking like that. Still 2 points left over. But now you have 3 Fanus. You have a Nahab in the midfield to punch warbands and hack things. Still whip 14, so still very good hacker. And you still have the Maggies doing the Maggie things. Unfortunately, double Maggies does eat up a lot of resources. So I'm still going to advocate for not this, but pare this back down. The double Ghulam with the, where is it? Sniper missile. And then a Nafatoon light flamethrower. Just because, at least with this, you do have access to a decent enough core team. Even if you lack any CC to help untie the Maggies from, you know, being in combat. And let's be honest, that's not something you're always going to have to deal with anyway. Some factions just don't have big close combat things regardless. Alternatively, you could get rid of this Ghulam missile launcher to make room for Carmen. And what this would allow you to do is you can use Carmen if you would go where I want her to. She is not. Okay. There. What this configuration allows you to do is you can take Carmen and you can use her to throw smoke to cover the Maggie's approaches if you don't want to fight with them immediately, which is perfectly reasonable. There's just some things that you don't want to fight with the Maggie. One of them being a Kamau sniper. But she can, especially if you, say, coordinate breaking your fire teams. So both Maggies and maybe the sniper. And probably one more thing. If you have the missile launcher in this list, you bring the missile launcher. And you just coordinate both Maggies and the sniper and the missile launcher. You get a beat on the Kamau, and you hope. But if I was doing that, I would have my dispenser Maggie be the spearhead. The other Maggie use the heavy rocket launcher probably. Let's go ahead and double check Rangers, guys. Yeah, definitely use the heavy rocket launcher. It's decent enough. And then just have the sniper and the missile launcher do sniper and missile launcher things. And hopefully the Kamau just dies. And then you go on your merry way. That is a thing that everyone needs to always keep in mind when playing this game. There are more ways to attack than one. Always, 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 always. But yeah, double Maggie list. Really fun, really dumb. Really just there to say, hey, I brought 2 tags that can link with little remotes that have repeaters because I can, and there's a killer hacker in the background. What are you going to do to stop it? Sometimes the answer is nothing. Sometimes the answer is cry. But yeah, that's Ramah Task Force lists. You got all-comer lists, you got specific lists, you got silly lists. There are things I didn't go over very much, like Tariq. He dictates a list because of the things he can do. I didn't go over Hortlak. They just are amazing for what they do. There's so much I could go over in Hawk, but I can't because I'm waiting for models to be released. But anyway, guys, I hope this was informative in some way, shape, or form. I will go over more of Hawk the second I can, because I love Hawk. Hawk is my favorite faction in this game. I tried to fight it. I did. Because my friends kept telling me, please stop double fideing me in Vanilla Hawk. It makes me upset. And I said, fine. But I came back, baby. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, that nonsense. Have a good one, guys. Peace out.